Welcome to Economist Life. This is Tatsuaki presenting you costs, revenues, and profits, part 1. The reason why this is part 1 is because I decided to divide this chapter into 3 videos because this chapter is very large. And also this chapter, cost, revenue, and profit, is actually higher level content. So this video is specifically made for higher level students. It involves a lot of calculation, and these problems can often come out in paper 3 style question, which is based on calculation problems. Let's get started. Costs. So there are many different ways to differentiate, divide, classify costs. But the first way I am presenting you is the difference between short-run costs and long-run costs. The idea of short-run and long-run is essential in economics. Short-run costs are types of costs where at least one factor of production is fixed. Purchasing of machineries can be short-run costs. Adding skilled laborers is also short-run costs. So the tricky part is that short-run cost can be from 2 days to 2 years. So when we hear the word short-run, we're like, oh, it must the date itself has to be very small and short. Well, this is not the case because, say, building a new factory can be considered as a short-run cost because at least one factor of production is fixed, right? But it may take up 2 years or even more, but it's still short-run costs. Adding units on variable factors, that's what it is. On the other hand, long-run costs are types of costs where all factors of production are variable, but the state of technology is fixed. Changing all factors of production, but each process is in short run. So long run cost is the planning stage. It never happens during the actual process of changing factors of production. Why? Because it is virtually impossible to change all factors of production at the same time. It is impossible to hire new employees and building new factories and so on. This is only in the planning stage. Again, all production takes place in the short run, but planning is always in the long run. Because in the long run, you can be like, the business can be like, okay, in next 2 years, we're going to add more employees, purchase new machineries, and such. Now, another way to divide costs. But before that, I also have to introduce the concept of products because this will directly be related to costs. So total product, average product, and marginal product, what are they? It's pretty straightforward, I believe. Total product, TP, is the total output the firm produces using its fixed and variable factors in a given time period. So the total amount of products. That's it. The next one, average product, AP, is the output that is produced on average by each unit of the variable factor. So the keyword here is this each unit. So each unit can be calculated by dividing V, which is the number of units from TP. TP divided by V is AP. Third one, marginal product, MP, is the extra output that is produced by using an extra unit of the variable factor. The key word here is extra. MP can be calculated by the difference in total product divided by the difference in V. It also shows the slope of the tangent of TP curve. Yeah, you probably don't know what the hell I just said. You'll see. Delta means change in. So during the test paper 3, something like this, something similar to this might come out, and you can be asked to calculate marginal product and average product. Well, for marginal product, again, it can be calculated by delta TP divided by delta units of labor, same thing of delta units or delta V as I introduced. So let's do it. NP equals difference in TP, difference in units of labor. For the first one, because it starts with 0 and there is no previous one, same for units of variable input, 0 divided by 0, no answer. For the second one, the difference here is 0 to 2, so 2 units. So 2 for the numerator, 0 to 1, so 1 for the denominator. 2 divided by 1 is 2. For the third one, it has increased by 3, and for this one, it has increased by 1 unit. 3 divided by 1. And so on and so on. Yeah, but don't make a mistake assuming that it's going to increase forever. Actually, 2, 3, 4, 5, but after that 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, and it even becomes negative, so it doesn't always increase. Average product, TP divided by units of labor. TP 0, units of labor 0, of course. For the second one, TP is 2, units of labor is 1, 2. For the third one, 5 divided by 2, so each unit of product will be 2.5, and so on and so on. Again, it never turns negative for this one, but it increases and decreases. There might be a trend for it. Again, for the previous one table, this one, we have a column for total product. So let's graph them and see what it's like. If you graph this, it's going to look like this. First, it's going to increase very steeply, but after that it becomes a bit less steep or shallow maybe, and it becomes totally flat, and then it starts to decrease. So this is what common TP curves look like. Again, for marginal product and average product, we calculated and found out AP is like a parabola. It first increases but then decreases. For NP, the same thing, it increases and then decreases, but something very interesting is that it turns negative. And also it says like these: increasing marginal product, decreasing marginal product, negative marginal product. See, it's pretty straightforward. NP is increasing, NP is decreasing here, NP turns negative here. So these trends or these shapes of graphs can be explained by using the law called the law of diminishing returns. Okay, this both flaunted statement is the actual definition of this law. So it goes like this: as extra units of a variable factor are added to a given quantity of a fixed factor, the output from each additional unit of the variable will eventually diminish. It kind of maybe sounds hard, but it's not really. It's just saying first, when factors of production is increased, the output will also increase. The ability for the business to produce products will increase, but eventually that will decrease. This can be caused by some problems, and some of the problems can be like communication problem, less space per person. What I mean by that is, say you work in a hamburger shop and there's an increasing demand for their products or their foods. So the company decides to hire more employees, purchase more bigger machines, what will happen? They can produce more because they have more human resources, also machineries that can, fasten the process of production, so they can now produce more. But if the company hires too much workers, yeah, you won't be able to find the right person at the right time. There might be a communication problem. There will be less space per person because the place will be so packed, right? And your efficiency of production might actually decrease. That is why total product can eventually decrease. Yeah. So, just before skipping this and entering into this slide, as I said before, MP is actually the slope of the tangent of total product. Yeah, maybe you've heard of this in the math class if you're taking math SL at higher level. So it's basically the knowledge of calculus, but if you look at the slope of this graph, the tangent of this graph, it's very steep at first, very steep, but from some point this steepness will decrease. That is this decreasing marginal product. When the MP becomes negative, that is when total product is falling. You don't have to necessarily understand fully what I just said, but if you understand, that's great. Okay, economic costs. Now we can talk about costs. So costs that we think every day and economic cost is a bit different. This is because economic costs consists of different types of costs. The first one is explicit costs, which is costs to a firm that involve the direct payment of money. Implicit costs, on the other hand, are earnings that a firm could have had if it had employed its factors in another use of it had hired out or sold them to another firm. Examples can be owner's rating earnings. The opportunity cost for the owner's earnings might be to purchase the new machines or hire a new worker. Opportunity cost for rent of buildings, again, you could use the business could use the money in different ways. And also I skipped this very first part. I wrote that economic costs can be differentiated into two categories. The first one is factors that are purchased from others and not already owned by the firm. The second one is factors that are already owned by the firm. One is often the case for explicit costs. Two, the second one is for implicit costs. Sorry for the confusion, but this is the important part. That economic costs consists of explicit costs and implicit costs. Now, we're talking about maybe different kinds of costs. Well, these costs are consisted of economic costs, but we can classify total costs. Yeah, total cost is everything. By summing total fixed costs and total variable costs. So what are they? Well, it's pretty simple. Total fixed cost, TFC, is the total cost of fixed asset that a firm uses in a given time period. Like maybe renting fee, salaries for the manager. If it is constant, then total fixed cost will be the same no matter how much the business produces. Their products, their output does not affect the cost. That's what total fixed cost is. On the other hand, total variable costs will change with the amount of products the business produce, like electricity fees or gas fees. Yeah, if they produce more, that means their machines are working more, so the electricity fee fare will increase. That's what's saying. So these are what it looks like. By the way, TC is the addition of TVC and TFC. So first, let's look at TFC because this is very easy. It is straight. It stretches forever. For the second one, TVC, it generally shows a trend of increasing. However, this is not straight. It's kind of, curvy. I am going to explain why this is happening. TC is TVC plus TFC, so you have TVC, and this is moved vertically upwards with the value of TFC. Zoop, that's it. It's pretty easy to draw. Another different ways to differentiate costs. Yeah, there are many ways to differentiate costs, but you have to remember them all. So, as I mentioned, total product, average product, marginal product, we have the same thing for costs. We have average cost and marginal costs. Average cost again is average total cost is consisted of average fixed cost and average variable cost. Well, if you look at average fixed cost, AFC, it is the fixed cost per unit of output. AFC equals TFC divided by Q, where Q is the quantity. Average variable cost is variable cost per unit of output. How much the variable cost is for 1 unit of output, because it will change for different outputs. AVC can be calculated by TVC divided by Q. Lastly, ATC is the total cost per unit of output, can be calculated by TC divided by Q. Marginal cost is the increase in total cost of producing an extra unit of output, an extra. So how much cost the business has to pay when they add an extra unit of output. That is what MC is. It can be calculated by delta TC, which is the difference of TC, divided by delta Q, which is the difference of Q. ATC, ABC, MC curves look like this. ATC first falls, then increases. AVC also first falls and increases. MC curve will look like this. And one thing to remember is that MC curve always cuts the lowest point of AVC and ATC. You have to remember this. If you look at AFC also, AFC is very easy to explain because first it is high, but because total fixed cost is the same, if there is more quantity, fixed cost per unit of output will decrease. Well, something we have to think about is why these average cost curves are these bend, first decrease and increase shape. But before explaining that, I also have to introduce long run cost curve. So long run cost curve, another name of this LRAC is envelope curve, because it's like a big envelope with lots of short run average cost. So what's happening here? Let's say you have SRAC first. This is where the business starts from. Say the business was producing the output of Q1 where the cost is C3, but there is a rising demand for their product. So the Q1 output now shifts to Q2. What will happen? The cost actually decreases and becomes C star. That's good for the business. But in the long run, business can always plan ahead. So the business, because their demand is increasing, the business might be like, maybe we should be able to produce more product easily. So they decide to add on their factors of production. So by doing that, somehow, now SRAC moves down to SRAC2. Well, obviously, if you have more, well, this is the concept I am going to talk about in the next slide, but by hiring more factors of production, average costs will actually be cheaper. So that is what's happening. There will be a shift of SRAC to, downwards. Yeah. So yeah, I was talking about this slide. So now, same output, but now C2. Let's say there's even an increase in demand, and it becomes Q3. Now the business wants to hire even more factors of production. So SRAC2 moves to SRAC3, and this is the point, the lowest point. However, after that, even if the business increases their factors of production, they're no longer lowering the average cost, but now they're increasing their average costs. So this is why LRAC is first decreasing and increasing. Well, why does this decreasing and increasing happen? This is because of economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. I'm pretty sure you've never heard of it. If you're taking IB business, you might heard of it in topic 1, just like I did. So economies of scale is the formal definition that you perfect to remember, is any decreases in long-run average costs that come about when a firm alters all of its factors of production in order to increase the scale of output. So let's think about it. Again, there might be a factory. They're planning yet. So they decide to maybe hire new employees, add new machines, purchase more raw materials. What will happen is that these new actions will lower their variable costs. The reason why this happens, there are so many reasons that's discussed in the textbook. I picked 4 of them. I believe these are the main ones. First, specialization. Say the manager is the company is a self-managing company, sole trader in other words, I guess. If it's like that, the manager has to do every kind of jobs. So from sales, to production, to advertising, marketing, human, and such. So the manager, this one person, has to do so many work, and it cannot specialize. But say they hire more employees, and now manager can specialize on his job, maybe accounting. There might be marketing department, there might be production workers. So it's specialized, their works are specialized, and their efficiency increases. They become more professional with what they're doing. Yeah, because of these reasons, because of this specialization, now the variable costs will decrease. The second one, division of labor. Say there is this one big production process where 5 workers were being hired. Now let's increase the workers to 10 workers. Now again, division of labor, one can do their own jobs quickly, resulting in lower average costs. The third one, bulk buying. This happens when, I think this is pretty easy to get image, because this happens in the real life too. Say you're buying 2 apples and it costs $1, but say you're buying 10 apples and ask the store to maybe give some discount because you're buying many, right? So instead of selling them in $10, the store might decide to sell them in $8. Bulk buying. Larger machines, if the if the agriculture farmer, rice croppers decide to buy a new big machine that can crop and harvest their crops very quickly, yeah, in less time, less human work, then that's economies of scale. That's decreasing the average cost. On the other hand, these economies of scale is any increases in long-run average costs that come about when a firm alters all of its factors of production in order to increase its scale of output. So if they do this too much, yeah, if they hire too many workers for the production process, there might be control and communication problems because the business cannot handle it anymore. There are so many workers to think about, and again, communication might be harder. Less efficiency, more costs, more average costs. The second one, alienation and loss of identity. This is pretty interesting. Like, this is very, I don't know, familiar, interesting to think. So, because now you're given less job because no more workers are hired, you feel like you're less involved in the actual production of the products and services. Now you feel like you're like maybe useless in the company. Because you feel like you're useless, you'll be like, well, why the hell am I doing this job for the company? Do I really have to work that hard even though the salary won't change? Workers might think like that. The efficiency might go down, resulting in an increase in variable costs. This economies of scale. Again, if you look at this LRAC curve, the very until Q3, LRAC is decreasing because of economies of scale. However, from Q3, if they hire too many factors of production, their average cost will increase. That is what's happening. That is why it is called envelope curve. That is why it first decreases and then increases. Okay, so thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this very long video that was almost 30 minutes. I used these two textbooks for the diagrams, definitions. I also use these websites for my helps to get some images. So thank you very much for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If there is any question, please ask me. Comment down below. See you next time.